2026. This is they have a couple. We have a couple more witnesses to go through in regards to the plaintiff's case in chief, and then it's gonna switch over to the defendants, which is Conor McGregor and James Lawrence case in chief to present. Okay, so without further, Dr. Charlotte Murphy takes the stand, the first witness, and she is a forensic scientist for Forensic Science Ireland. Dr. Murphy said Miss Han claimed Conor McGregor digitally penetrated her and put penis in her mouth without her consent. Dr. Murphy said she gave 3 reports on December 19, 2018, January 30th, 2019, and a final report in March 2020. In order for us to know what analysis to carry out, we need certain pieces of information, said Dr. Murphy. Nikita Han has a poor reflection of events, but she said Mr. Gregor digitally penetrated her and put penis in her mouth without her consent. 1,000 million times likely male DNA originated from Conor McGregor than from an unknown person. Dr. Murphy said that Miss Han had no recollection with James. Let me start again. Sorry. Dr. Murphy said that Miss Han had no recollection of sex with James Lawrence. Dr. Murphy said that samples were taken from Miss Han during medical examination. Conor McGregor said he had consensual intercourse with Miss Han, and Mr. Lawrence said he consensually touched her vagina and had consensual sex twice with Miss Han and wore a condom on both occasions, Dr. Murphy said. It is not possible for me to address the issue of consent. The purpose is to examine her clothing and intimate spots for semen, Dr. Murphy added. Dr. Murphy said that DNA profiling was carried out on Miss Han's vaginal area, that there was evidence of full male DNA, and that it was 1,000 million times more likely the DNA originated from McGregor than from an unknown person. James Lawrence was excluded as a possible contributor. There was insufficient semen, Dr. Murphy added. So the next witness took the stand, and it was Mr. John McMahon. John McMahon is a co-owner of Gerard Paul Hairdressing, where Miss Han worked prior to the alleged incident involving Miss Han and Mr. McGregor. Mr. Murphy says Miss Han took some time off after the events of December 2018, owing to her depression and anxiety. Mr. McMahon said Miss Han was to compete in a prestigious hairdressing competition in 2019, but didn't. He said Miss Han worked in the salon since 2014 and took 3 years off following the birth of our daughter. In December 2018, Mr. McMahon said Miss Han was working 4 days a week at the salon, getting base pay of €400 a week, on top of tips and tips on top of her salary. Mr. McMahon said Miss Han took a period of time out after December 2018, owing to her depression and anxiety. He said she was off for 2 months and returned 4 days a week in February 2019. She went 4 days a week for a time, but she struggled. She struggled and became less reliable. There were no shows 2 days a week at times, he says. Mr. McMahon said Miss Han was going to compete in a L'Oreal hairdressing competition in 2019, the most prestigious hair coloring competition in Ireland, but decided against it. She knew she was good, but I wouldn't say she was overly ambitious, he says. She was doing color for other stylists and could have built up her own clientele over a number of years. So they're going through, this is day 6. So they're going through all of this to kind of show the losses that she has had to make the case for damages, which is why they're going through these witnesses. Elva Breen takes a stand. Elva Breen is an occupational therapist. Miss Han is not fit for competitive employment, says Miss Breen. Miss Breen gave evidence that Miss Han had symptoms of PTSD and psychological issues when she assessed her in December 2020 and April 2024. Miss Breen said Miss Han had attempted to return to work 2 months after the alleged assaults, but she lacked ability to communicate, was very tearful, was emotionally fragile, and found work to be a difficult place to be. Miss Breen said Miss Han was certificated unfit for work in May 2019 and handed in her notice. It was unusual. You don't hand notice when unwell, you go on a sick leave, said Miss Breen. Her ambition was to continue working in Jarapol's salon, where she was very happy in her job. She talked about the Loyal hairdressing competition. She found it extremely challenging to continue working, and Miss Breen said Miss Han is not fit for competitive employment. I advised her to investigate retraining, something that is not customer based and not so triggering for her, she said. Moving on, return to hair salon for Miss Van would be too difficult as it is too triggering, Miss Breen says. In April 2024, Ms. Breen met Ms. Han and she was on disability allowance, a means tested allowance that is not easy to get and demonstrates a level of incapacity. Ms. Han made 2 attempts to go back to work, and in February 2023 worked with Grosvenor cleaning at NCAD Monday to Friday, 2 hours a day from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. By December 2023, Ms. Hand handed in her notice as she had increased anxiety and panic attacks. She had hoped the role would be suitable as it didn't involve dealing with the public. She saw it as a way of getting back to work, first steps in vocational rehabilitation. Ms. Breen says. Ms. Breen says that in February 2024, Ms. Hand wanted to return to hairdressing and started work at a salon in Walkinstown, but found it extremely anxiety provoking and triggering, and she was certified as unfit for work by a GP after 6 weeks in a row. She now needs a safe and predictable environment where there is a routine. A customer-facing role is too triggering for Nikita, says Ms. Breen. It would be difficult for it would be too difficult for her to return to a hair salon. It's too triggering for her, she adds. Okay. Peter Byrne takes a stand. Peter Byrne is an actuary in court to provide evidence of value of Miss Hand's loss of earnings to date and a future loss of earnings. Actuary claims 594,550 euros loss as future loss of earnings for Miss Hand if she doesn't work again. Ms. Burns says Miss Hand's gross loss earnings to date from 2019 to August 2024, assuming she was on 400 a week plus €100 tips, would be 136,122 euros. He took the same approach to future loss of earnings saying that if Miss Han doesn't work again, our net loss will be 594,550 euros. Detective Garda James Cod takes a stand. Detective Garda James Cod of Dundrum Garda Station said he became involved in the investigation December 11, 2018. Detective Garda details investigating the doors in the penthouse at the Beacon Hotel. Detective Garda Cod said he attended the Beacon Hotel on the night of 11th of December. And asked if Conor McGregor had stayed there the night before. He said the purpose of the visit was to see how the locking mechanism worked on the interconnecting doors between the two rooms in the penthouse. Detective Garda Cod said guests need a card to get into the room, but the need for keys for interlocking doors. Okay. When you book the two rooms together, the interlocking doors are open, he said. The Detective Garda said he can't give direct evidence on the state of the doors on the 10th of December. The Detective Garda Cod confirms he was there when photos of Beacon Hotel penthouse were taken. Judge Owens, Detective Garda Cod, to clarify if he was there when photos of the rooms were taken. He says he was. Detective Garda Cod was provided with the two physical keys for interlocking doors from housekeeping. When in a locked position, it prevents the doors from being fully closed. You can take the key out in the position as well, he said. Daniel Keeley. So now I think we are getting into the defense case in chief, because Daniel Keeley is now taking a stand. Daniel Keeley is the work colleague of Miss Han at the time of the alleged incident. Miss Keeley doesn't remember any contact with Conor McGregor until the early hours of the morning. Questioned by senior counsel for McGregor, Remy Farrell. So this is the direct exam. Miss Keeley said on December 8th, 2018, the Salon had its Christmas party when they all went to the airfield. It was just a big Christmas party. Loads of parties were there, Miss Keeley said. We were there for a few hours and left early. We went back to the Go pub in Ghost Town, straight across the road from the Salon. We were all there: Jade, Ola, Chloe, Michelle, John, and Gerard, and girls from other salons. When asked if she remembered Conor McGregor being mentioned, Miss Keeley said she hadn't until the end of the night when they were in the Salon, and that the Gold Bar had closed at that stage. I think Nikita was chatting to him on Instagram. I didn't see the messages, she said. Miss Keeley said it was in the early hours of the morning. We were going to go out to McGregor. He was going to collect us. I don't remember any calls back and forth, she said. Miss Keeley recalls arriving at the Beacon Hotel. Miss Keeley said Mr. McGregor collected them at the Salon, drove around for a little while, and went to the hotel. He was in the back of the black car. There was a driver. I got into the back. Don't remember what there was in the car, Miss Keeley says. Miss Keeley adds that she remembers a little bit in the car, that it stopped at two houses and Mr. Lawrence came out of the second house before the car proceeded to the hotel. I think we went directly into the hotel. I think the driver went to reception. We didn't. I can't remember where we were, Miss Keeley says. Miss Keeley says she saw Miss Han and Mr. McGregor go into the other room in the hotel. Miss Keeley says everything was fine in the hotel room. I think vodka was brought to the room, she says. I know Conor McGregor and Hand went into the other room. I saw them go in. I didn't know what was happening in there. She came back out and everything was fine. This was just before we left. Everything was fine. I didn't notice anything happened. No one seemed upset. Miss Keeley says she didn't notice any marks or injuries on anyone, neither Mr. McGregor or Miss Hand. My phone was broken, so I asked Connor if I could get a lift with him as I live nearby. She says he didn't agree at first, but I asked the driver and then he agreed. Nikita and James were supposed to get into another car and go home. I said goodbye to Nikita and gave her a hug. She wanted everyone to stay, but can't remember why. Miss Kitty adds, this kind of gives context to her staying longer with James Lawrence, according to CCTV, and leaving at 10:28 a.m. as we went through in days 1 to 4 of this trial. So this kind of echoes that sentiment because her saying, her friend here, Danielle Keeley, saying that she wanted to stay while everyone else was going on, kind of makes sense why she stayed with James Lawrence that long. Miss Keeley says she heard from Miss Han a few days later through Instagram to say that she had been raped. I was surprised I didn't see anything, says Miss Keeley, who adds that Miss Han told her to delete the Instagram chat. She rang me. When she was in Rotunda, said that she was raped. I told her I didn't see anything or hear anything, Miss Keeley adds. Miss Keeley admits being intimate with James Lawrence. Miss Keeley admitted to being intimate with James Lawrence on the night and said condoms were used. Miss Keeley resumes her evidence after lunch break. Footage is being viewed of Miss Keeley, Miss Hand, Mr. McGregor, and Mr. Lawrence in the lifts of the hotel. When asked by Remy Farrell, BL, if she can recall it, she says she can't remember, but watched the footage. Described them as all being in a good mood and continued to be throughout the afternoon. Footage shown of the four going back in the lift. Miss Keeley said the mood was similar. Miss Keeley says she can't remember when asked if she heard noises suggesting Miss Han and Mr. McGregor were having sex. When asked when Miss Han hugged her, Miss Keeley said it was in the car. After Miss Han sent her the message, she said she never saw or heard from Miss Han again. Miss Keeley said Miss Han's solicitor subpoenaed her to court. Barrister for James Lawrence, John Fitzgerald, SC, put it to Miss Keeley that she heard voices that suggested Mr. McGregor and Miss Han were having sex. I can't remember, Miss Keeley's response. Miss Keeley also said she can't remember saying she's going to regret that she just bought a house with her boyfriend. Mr. Fitzgerald suggests to Miss Keeley that Miss Han was coming in and out of the room while Miss Keeley was engaged in sexual activity. Miss Keeley says she didn't appear distressed when she was coming in and out of the bedroom. Not that I noticed. Miss Keeley says she can't remember Miss Han making a lewd comment when Mr. Lawrence was kissing Miss Keeley's stomach.